This is your Matchbook Weekend Football podcast. It's time for the Weekend Football Punting Preview. I'm Ali Maxwell, joined today by football broadcaster Matt Scott from TalkSport, among others, and Mark O'Hare from We Love Betting. You guys, stats, opinions and selections. That's the remit today. Now, Matchbook might be an exchange site, but ACCAs are available, have been for the last month or so since being added to the site. If you head to matchbook.com, you can see how to bundle up selections. If there's anything you like from the podcast today, any of your own fancies, give it a go this weekend. Could be a goer. We're going to start our weekend football preview at the West Ham Stadium with West Ham hosting Tottenham. Not a huge amount to say about this game, but I'm sure we'll find a way to rattle through it. West Ham are 4.4, Spurs 1.83, the draw 4.3. West Ham plus half a goal on the handicap 2.13, and Spurs minus half a goal 1.82. Over 3.0 goals 1.93, and the under 1.98. This is a Tottenham team managed by Jose Mourinho, which is a strange sentence to say. Pochettino out, Jose Mourinho in. Matt Scott, what are your thoughts on Mourinho's Tottenham Hotspur?
Well, the Tottenham Hotspur he's taking over. I mean, it's remarkable, isn't it? 6 months ago, they were in a Champions League final. I mean, who could possibly have imagined that Mauricio Pochettino would no longer be the manager just 6 months later? And that is down to the fact that they've not won away in the league since January. It's 12 games since they've done that. They started the league season okay for a Spurs team in terms of the template of their play. They had the dominating the ball, broadly speaking, 58% possession, but that's dipped. And at the time, that was third in the Premier League. But that's dipped now. They're 8th in terms of possession in the league standings for possession, and that's really affected their creativity. It was gone down from 1.4 expected goals to 0.9 now. So that's what's opened the door to Jose Mourinho. Mauricio Pochettino's team are not performing in the way that we had expected them to. Everybody expected them to kick on. You know, they go out and buy Ndombele. He looks absolutely fantastic. What a goal he scored on his debut for Spurs. And yet he can't work his way into the team. It doesn't look very different to how it was last year. It feels like this is a group of players who have reached the end of the road with Spurs. They've got real concerns in that dressing room about meeting what it is that the players want from their careers. Christian Eriksen wants out. We know the same's happened with one or two of the centre backs. You know, they're not being paid the wages commensurate with a side that has been reaching the Champions League final and performing at Champions League level year in, year out from the Premier League. So the constraints of building that stadium are really biting hard against them. And it's been a job too hard for Mauricio Pochettino to keep them happy, keep them performing at the levels they were. Really similar to the story that Arsenal underwent and why he completely changed, Wenger completely changed the squad, broke up that invincible squad as soon as they looked like moving into that stadium. So parallels there. Is it going to change under Mourinho? Well, I don't see that happening personally. If you go on his final season at Manchester United and compare it with where Spurs are now, Spurs at the moment are hitting 12.5 shots a game. It's 14.8 shots against. In his last season at United, Mourinho's team were pretty much exactly the same. It was 12.7 shots for against 14 against. The goals for Mourinho's United in the last season was 1.7 a game, which is slightly more than the 1.5 that Spurs are getting now. But the goals against was also higher, also 1.7 against Spurs is 1.4 now. So, you know, it's much of a muchness. You know, if you're going on his performance at Old Trafford in that final season before he was sacked, it doesn't look like there's any real difference between the two teams. What will change is how he's going to approach the game. I mean, Mauricio Pochettino is dogmatically opposed to long ball. I mean, he plays the fewest long balls of any team in the division under Pochettino. Well, that United side under Mourinho was playing 33% more long balls. So brace yourselves, Spurs fans, because it ain't going to be pretty.
Let me bring Mark O'Hare into it here. I suppose from a punting proposition, I guess you're going to want to see a few games and see the first few weeks, Mark, to see how this Mourinho Spurs team is going to look. But in general, what do you as a punter think about this Mourinho appointment? And also looking ahead to this game against West Ham on the weekend, Matt mentioned Tottenham's terrible away record in this calendar year, 1.82 on site to win the game. How does that look to you?
Not very appealing, Ali. The money's actually come for Spurs in the last 48 hours. Not a massive move, but a slight move. So the market seems to suggest that the changes is a good thing for Spurs. I think it's a massive gamble, not just in terms of approach, but also ego. Compare the two characters. They're chalk and cheese, really. And for what's been quite a financially prudent club like Spurs, it's taking a lot of money to get rid of Pochettino and his staff and bring in Mourinho, as well as having a whole host of players' futures up in the air. I guess Levy will be looking at it and say, well, hopefully Mourinho will be the catalyst to get these guys to stay on board and build a new team. But I kind of look further down the line, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, when Mourinho does depart, and this team could be just a shell of what we've seen in the last few years, really. And it's a shame, because Spurs were never a top team when I was growing up. They're always there or thereabouts, kind of around mid-table, wanting to push on. But Levy obviously deserves massive credit for that, but so does Pochettino and Harry Redknapp and others, of course. But they've had year-on-year progress, and he's just been basically he's had to leave because he's been a victim of his own success, really. And I think that's really harsh. I think he deserved to leave on his own merit, really. And I think at the end of the season, it would have probably been a fair time. And I think we'll see with Pochettino, his next job will be at Madrid or Man United. I think that's pretty much a sure thing, really. So that's how high he's regarded in the game. And I think this is a massive gamble for Spurs. And as you say, coming into this weekend, they don't really appeal to me. I think the big question as a punter is how much influence Mourinho can have on this team with effectively 2 days' time on the training pitch. Presumably he'll have full sessions on Thursdays and Friday before Saturday's early kickoff. Players might be fatigued, might be travelling back from international duty, I'd say up to including Wednesday. So very little time to kind of ingrain his ideas. If you look at him compared to Pochettino, since he came back for his second spell of Chelsea, the records between the two in terms of win percentage is almost exactly the same. There's 1% between the two and a sample of over 200 Premier League games. So I'm not expecting a huge amount of change. Matt's already mentioned the away record, 9 defeats in 12 in the Premier League, conceding in all 12 of those, conceding at least twice in 9 of those. You would expect that record to improve, but they are without Vertonghen this weekend. 1 win in 10 without him, without a clean sheet in that 10-game record as well. Compare their record with him in the team, it's night and day, really. So, I'm not really on board with this move towards Spurs at the moment, but I guess you have to balance it out by looking at West Ham. There obviously is another team in this match taking place, but West Ham in dreadful form of their own, and it's all come on the back of Fabianski's injury. He was the hammer of the year last year. They let Adrian leave for Liverpool. Roberto's been nothing short of a disaster since coming in. The downturn has really come in since he's been in the team. The confidence looks completely shot in defence. We saw that in sort of diabolical displays against Newcastle and away against Burnley before the international break. It's hard to sort of balance this out. It seems like a watching brief to me. I want to see how Mourinho sets up this Spurs team, because he has got tools at his disposal. They have had injuries for a lot of the last sort of 3-6 months, but the squad's starting to look pretty fulsome again. So he has got options, but I don't expect anything too dramatic. But I'd like to see how this game plays out before sort of making any sweeping statements on Spurs.
Watching brief for Mark O'Hare. Matt, before we move on to Man City, Chelsea, have you got any stronger thoughts on how this one might play out?
Yeah, I mean, look, they are very capable of scoring goals. I think he's going to go from back to front a lot more quickly. There is, it's very clear that they haven't been performing at their levels. And I think that when you do play a more simple football, just trying to hit Harry Kane as a target man, I think that it's going to get a bit of change for them. I wouldn't back them to win. I think that the odds on is too skinny for Spurs to win, particularly in light of everything that Mark's just explained there. I do quite like a 30% return on laying West Ham. I don't see this being the first win that West Ham get in however many it is, 8, isn't it? That they've gone winless. So I think actually with a 1.3, I'd quite like the lay bet on West Ham for this one. Okay,
let's move on to City and Chelsea. Another big game, the biggest game in the Premier League this weekend. City are 1.47 on the Matchbook site as we record on Thursday morning. Chelsea 7.5 and the draw 5.3. Man City minus 1.25 goals, 1.94, and Chelsea with 1.25 goals are even money. Over 3.25 goals is the goal line at 1.84, and under is 2.06. This is a Chelsea team who are above Manchester City in the league table with 6 wins in a row, 26 points to City's 25, and of course this fantastic away record this season. Mark, my question to you is, do you think Chelsea will still be above Man City by the end of this weekend?
No, I don't. But I wouldn't be putting my my money on City to win this game comfortably at all. I think there's certainly an argument to suggest for Chelsea plus 1.5 goals on the Asian handicap. Anything around 1.8 is a bet really for me. From a City perspective, 9 points off Liverpool. The pressure really is now on them to sort of, turn their season around, if you like. It's the worst start for Pep after 12 games across his managerial career. The first time he's been more than 3 points off the top of the table at this stage of the season as well. I don't think their race is run. I think Pep said himself after the Liverpool game he's not sure if they can turn it around, but they did last season from a similar position around Christmas time. So no reason to suggest they can't here. Basically, it's all about going forward for them. The issues, as we all know, are defensively. I thought they weren't too bad at Anfield despite the result. And I think if they had key personnel back in defence, they would have potentially got a result there. But I'm not sure on Ederson's fitness for this match. But I certainly still, even if he was playing, wouldn't be backing them to keep a clean sheet, because Chelsea have been, I wouldn't say as good, but they've certainly been clearly the second best team going forward in the Premier League this season, behind City, according to the underlying data. And you look at City, and I think there's absolutely zero confidence in that defence to keep a clean sheet without Laporte, without Zinchenko. Stones is in and out of the team. Otamendi, relegated to the bench for the big game, despite Fernandinho sitting in there as a kind of makeshift defender. So very little faith in City keeping clean sheets, and Chelsea have been flying away from home. They've never won 8 away on the spin, but that's what they're going for this weekend. The league's top scorers on their travels, scored at least twice in 5 successive away Premier League games since that defeat to United on the opening weekend. I think this is going to be a really open, watchable affair. I think goals are the way to play. I wouldn't normally go for a high goals line like over 3.25 or over 3.5, but I definitely think that's the way to play this one. You can get odds against over 3.5 goals, which I think is fair enough. The two have combined for 14 of 24 Premier League games going over 3.5. Those games averaging 3.84 goals. 3.44 expected goals as well, and I think over 3.5 goals has landed in 8 of City's last 11 at the Etihad when hosting Big Six opposition. I do expect them to win. I do expect Chelsea to get on the score sheet as well.
Matt, in the last few years, when Chelsea have gone to the Etihad, it has been like watching a team of adults playing against a team of kids. The big test, I suppose, and Lampard's Chelsea have passed most of them so far, will be not necessarily the result of this game, I suppose, but how the game plays out and how much of a gulf there is between the two teams. Given what Mark said about City's wobbly start to the season, how do you think this one will look? How do you think it'll go?
Yeah, I quite favour the odds against on a goal fest. This time, in this fixture last year, it certainly was a goal fest, but only in one direction. It was 6-0 in favour of Chelsea in favour of Man City against Chelsea. That is indicative of just how good their record has been against the Big Six sides. They've won pretty much 80% of their games against the Big Six going into this season under Pep, which is just a phenomenal record, and it is the bedrock of why they have won titles in that time. 2 out of 3 possible, two out of 3 possible Premier League trophies have gone Pep's way. So this one, though, doesn't look like it will. And a large part of that may very well be their record against the Big Six. They lost against Liverpool. They couldn't put away Spurs despite absolutely battering them. They had 30 shots against Spurs' 3 in August, but only drew 2-2. So there's a lot of question marks around this City side. I wonder if Pep's really happy. I mean, there's a lot of talk around his displeasure with VAR. We look at the fact, defensively, Mark's already identified it. They've conceded 13 goals this season against 5 at the same stage last year after 12 games. So that's a massive problem. But there's another one, and it is that the strikers are, oddly, we all look at it as them being, a goal machine. Actually, the strikers have been egregiously wasteful. Sergio Aguero, and this is a story that doesn't get told in football, is missing the target with 70% of his shots. That's phenomenal. I mean, who could expect Sergio Aguero not to be hitting the target? But he hasn't, and it's even worse with Gabriel Jesus. His shot conversion rate, because at least when Aguero does hit the target, he tends to beat the keeper. Gabriel Jesus, though, his shot conversion rate is 11%. So, if I were Kevin De Bruyne and laying it on the plate for those two constantly, I'd be pretty upset with them. If you look at that shot conversion rate of 11%, that's against the Premier League average of 19.5%. So that tells you just how below par Gabriel Jesus has been. At the other end, Tammy Abraham and Christian Pulisic have had no such problems. They're actually joint second in terms of shot conversion and chance conversion rate in the Premier League. So that's pretty phenomenal. Both teams will want to have the ball. Chelsea had 800 odd passes against Watford, which is a league high for away teams. So for me, I think that the key to this is Kante. Is he going to be fit after his injury? Because Chelsea will need a ball winner in there. Because as soon as the goal opens up at the Chelsea end, you get a goal. Because I mean, Kepa is appalling at stopping goals going in. He's made for every 2 shots against him, there is a goal. So that tells you that he's conceding every other shot that comes on target. So that's just really, really poor. And even Gabriel Jesus is going to be converting chances if that's the case against this keeper. So I think basically it's a question of Chelsea winning that ball back, because if they don't, then the goals will flow. I don't see that happening very often. I can't favour City at tighter than 2-1 on those. Those odds are far too skinny. Though they are naturally the favourites in this, but I couldn't pick it. So I think, go goals at better than even money.
Yeah, let's go with goals in that one. Bournemouth Wolves might be a different story, though. We've got a Bournemouth side who've gone over 2.5 in 7 of their 12 league games, but only 1 of the last 5. They've really tightened up in recent weeks. And a Wolves side that have only gone over 2.5 in 2 of their league games so far. Bournemouth are the home team on 2.87, Wolves 2.71, and the draw 3.44. Bournemouth plus 0.0 are even money, and Wolves -0, 1.94. Over 2.5 goals, 2.03, and the under 1.88. Matt, these teams are on the same amount of points. Wolves have scored 1 goal more, but they've conceded the same amount. So very level between the two in terms of the league this season. So I want you to tell me who is the better side.
There isn't one. Certainly not with Bournemouth at home. I mean, these are the 2 unbelievably well-matched sides. The Premier League shows it. I love looking for draws in the market because I think that's where the value lies. Because we all want to pick a winner. So the one that slips through the net is the draw, and I think that you get good prices. I think this one is very attractively priced at just less than 5-2. I mean, it's not the most generous price for a draw, but I think that when you actually look at the chances of it happening, then that's a really, really good price because, like I say, the 2 very well matched teams. They've got between them 11 of their 24 games this season have ended up in draws. Wolves, when you look at them away from home, have had 4 draws from 6. Bournemouth at home have had 3 draws from 6. So that's 58% of all the games they've been involved in ending up in draws. In terms of form, it's 3 from 5 for Wolves, so that's 60%. It's 2 from 5 from Bournemouth, so again, 50% between them have been draws. I think this, for me, actually, the draw is my weekend best bet. It's 5-2. I think is a really good pick.
Okay, and Mark, what's been chucked up in the O'Hare value generator for this Bournemouth Wolves?
The same as Matt, actually. Yeah, I think it's a tough one to second guess this. Bournemouth, I think, used to be the most predictable team in the Premier League. That's why they featured on this podcast so regularly. But I can't get them right this year. They were leading and seemingly in control at Newcastle before kind of, completely getting overrun and losing that match. I think they're a very curious team. Lerner was missing at St James's Park. He'll be back to partner Billing. I've very much been impressed by their improved defensive efforts with those two in those kind of battling holding roles. What used to be quite an interesting, exciting team in possession, they've really struggled from open play this year. Only Newcastle and Palace are generating fewer opportunities. 8 of their 15 goals from set pieces. Only one of those was a penalty as well. So, and I think there's doubts over Fraser and King for this match too. But they have only lost once in 6 at home, and that was against City. So, nothing really, to be fearful really for them. But Wolves, convincing against Villa last time out, were helped by Villa's injuries, but they're unbeaten in 7. Only Liverpool have scored in more consecutive games now than Wolves. Remarkably, they've scored in the last 11 Premier League games. But as Matt says, they've been held back by draws, an inability to keep clean sheets as well. They've conceded in 9 of those 11 games. And as we're going to go back to regularly, Wolves' record against bottom half teams in particular has been pretty sloppy. Since promotion, they've gone away to 13 bottom half teams, won only 3 times, failed to win in 9 of 14 games when 2-1 or shorter away from home. They're 2.7 here, which does look pretty skinny to me. So there would be a slight preference to Wolves, but I think at the prices, if you're looking for value, you have to get with a draw there. If you want something bigger, take the 1-1 draw at 6-1 or bigger, because that's been a regular occurrence in Wolves matches too. But very difficult game to second guess.
I do feel I've got to speak up for the excuse me, all the enraged Bournemouth fans who are screaming at their screens at the moment. We're ninth. We're ninth. So they're not quite bottom half, but I'd certainly take the point. They are a natural underdog in most Premier League games, and but I mean, Billing is an unbelievably good ball winner. They've got another one behind him in Diego Rico. As soon as anybody gets near the ball, near the goal, the ball gets nicked off them. So it's going to be hard for this wealth of attacking talent that they have at Wolves.
There's, I think, 11 teams within 3 points of each other, from 5th in Sheffield United to 15th in Everton. So it's all seriously congested. And we've got 2 more teams to discuss in that group. Sheffield United and Manchester United up at Bramall Lane this weekend. This one's at 4:30 on Sunday. Sheffield United, the home team, 3.72, and Manchester United 2.27. The draw 3.4. Sheffield United 2.04 with a quarter goal head start. Man United minus a quarter of a goal, 1.9. Over 2.25 goals, 1.95. And the under 2.25 goals, 1.96. Mark, we haven't really spoken much about Sheffield United on this podcast as a punting proposition. There's been lots discussed about their impressive start to the season in the wider media circles. What does the market think about them? What do your ratings think about Sheffield United? As much as we're so blinded and impressed by what an amazing start to the season they've had.
Well, Ali, as you're involved in the Football League. I follow the Football League quite closely. It's not really a huge surprise for us to see Sheffield United adapt to the Premier League as well as they have done. They've been a breath of fresh air. And I guess they've, put those lazy kind of pre-season predictions to one side, because they've been absolutely fantastic. I put them up as my outside shout at Spurs before the international break at a big price. Performed pretty well in that game, took the game to Spurs, unfortunately didn't get the result, but it shows how they kind of attacking the Premier League from a mindset point of view, that they were very disappointed to come away from that game with a draw. Chris Wilder, again, very refreshing in his analysis of the game, referenced the fact that his team had been ridiculed before a ball was kicked this season. And they're loving their role as underdogs, really, but I think he'll keep that squad grounded. Unlike the most of the Premier League, the majority of his players won't have been on international duty. I know there was quite a few still with Ireland and Scotland, etc. But John Egan picked up an injury, went off at half-time in Ireland's game on Monday night, which would be a concern. And Dean Henderson is ineligible for this game, which is a blow. But I feel like the system is much more important than the individuals with Sheffield United. So whilst Henderson will be a miss, Egan will be a miss, I still think they've got the ability to combat those absences for this game. I think they've only put in one below par effort this season against Southampton. Apart from that, they've been very, very solid, very, very competitive in every game. 5 clean sheets in 12, conceded at least 2 goals just twice. Only Leicester have conceded fewer goals, which is remarkable, really, when they faced 4 of the current top 6 and 4 big 6 teams already this season. And they are creating chances, as they showed against Spurs. So I think the market is very interesting for this game. Because Arsenal went here and they closed up at 2.08 at Bramall Lane. They lost that match. United at 2.27. That to me shows there's little faith in United, but also the fact that the market is reacting and respecting Sheffield United as a Premier League team now. I think that's shown in their underlying data. certainly not a top 6 team on the data, but they're comfortably marooned in mid-table. And United have just been so erratic at the times, really hard to pin them down. The 3-1 win against Brighton before the break, Solskjaer said was the best performance of their season, which is fair enough. They came hot on that heels of the Bournemouth game where I went in, thought they were a decent bet at 2.1, and they're absolutely appalling. They're obviously a bigger price for this game. I think at the start of the season, you'd be kind of surprised by that. But I mentioned the fact that United have been a bigger price away from home on 10 occasions since the start of last season. Before that Bournemouth game, 5 of those were against the Big Six, twice against Wolves. The others were Palace, Everton and West Ham. So clearly the market is losing confidence in United, and it's hard to blame them, really. They've been priced up at bigger than evens at a team outside the Big Six. In the last 6 games, 5 times they've lost. They've failed to win any of those. Their away record, 1 win in 10 in the Premier League, 0 clean sheets in 11. Across all competitions, 3 wins in 15, and that was since the fluky win against Paris in March. And interestingly, it's not just United though either. United, Spurs and Arsenal, if you put all 3 together, supposedly Big Six teams, they're all in their own state of flux. Between them, they've managed 2 wins from 15 away games this season when you exclude Liverpool and Man City from the equation, which is remarkably bleak for a team who are supposed to be challenging for Champions League places. So it's not a massive selection for me because of the price, but I have to preview with Sheff United plus a half goal start at 1.75 compared to United. The prices here, I've just been really impressed with the Blades, and I think they're more than good enough to give United a good game.
And Matt, Sheffield United have beaten Arsenal, they've drawn away at Chelsea, they drew away at Spurs. There'll be absolutely no inferiority complex here. They've probably got the better manager as well. And as Mark said, poor away form for United this season. They're going to have to be at their best to win this game, United. Do you think that that's likely or unlikely?
Well, they've been quite erratic. Old Trafford is such a fortress for them, even though they don't play very well. So when you take them out of that advantage is taken away. So I think that does skew how they have been performing in the league, and in terms of their overall points return, it is about how they play at home. Away from home, they aren't that good. I mean, another result that I think it takes an honourable mention is against Liverpool for Sheffield United. I mean, that was a very tight 2-1. Only a massive blooper from Dean Henderson, letting in a low-driven shot, was what ended up meaning that they didn't take anything from the game. So, but I'd like to focus on Dean Henderson in spite of that blooper and in spite of the fact that he's unavailable, because I think that actually he has been an enormous part of why they aren't in mid-table and are challenging right now for the Champions League places. He's at the moment their XG against is 16. But he's been preventing 0.6 XG a game, which is absolutely sensational. I mean, he has been, outside of Fabianski, who's had his season curtailed, he's been the standout performer in the Premier League in goals. So take him away from this team, I think that you've got problems, actually, because they've conceded only 9 goals when their XG is actually 16. Most newly promoted teams will exceed the XG in terms of goals conceded. So
are you suggesting, Matt, that his deputy, who could be Simon Moore, who is an EFL stalwart second choice goalkeeper, or Michael Verrips, the 22-year-old Dutch goalkeeper who played last season for KV Mechelen in Belgium, are you suggesting that that might be a bit of a drop down a level for Sheffield United, a bit of a concern?
Yeah, well, I think any goalkeeper really would be a drop down. Adrian performed fantastically well as the understudy to Alisson. I think we've seen some reasonable performances from Gazzaniga, but then you look at Roberto Jimenez, and we've already talked about him for West Ham, and it's been, to quote Mark, it's been nothing short of a disaster. So I think that could be a problem for them today, a real problem, because Henderson is that good. He is so reliable, and the fact that he isn't there, and the fact that one of the centre halves isn't there either, if he doesn't make it, that's going to put question marks in the minds of those who are there. O'Connell and Basham have been absolutely outstanding for them, of course. But when you've got, 50% of a really highly performing defensive unit out the way, coming up against some outstanding attackers, provided Jesse Lingard doesn't play, is my caveat to that. They're going to be a bit worried, I think, and I think that there's good reason with it. Going forward, they do have an advantage with set plays. They are brilliant at them, and Manchester United are terrible at stopping them. They've conceded 3 from corners when they really shouldn't have even been conceding a single one. So they're not very good at defending them, in spite of having hired Harry Maguire to try and do that sort of thing. So if they do have a chance to for Sheffield United on Sunday, I think it's going to be through those set plays. But I do favour Manchester United on this occasion at odds against. I don't think it's a bad bet. I think when you take out the best player, when the best player is in such an important position, then although they are always better than the sum of their parts, I think that if you take the best player out of any team, it affects them. When you take the best player out of a Sheffield United, newly promoted Sheffield United team, when he has been so important, his delivery, what he's returned for them has been so obvious, I think it's going to be a problem. I think that odds against is all right for United today.
Okay, plenty to think about there in our Premier League games that we've previewed. I think generally, with Mourinho's first game at Spurs, we're more or less just going to watch that one, a watching brief. We liked the draw in Wolves against Bournemouth. We quite liked goals. We really liked goals in Chelsea, Man City, up at the Etihad, and Sheffield United against United. Mark was siding with Sheffield United on the handicap, but as Matt says, a bit of a red flag with Dean Henderson being ineligible. Now for a couple of extra bits and bobs, starting with a £10 mythical risk-free bet. I'm giving you both hypothetical tenner. You get your money back if your bet loses, with the caveat that you have to choose an outside bet. So starting with you, Matt, what have you flagged up for us this weekend?
Well, I do, as I've already said, I like to look in my value draw for value draws, and I think that when you're looking at in terms of the teams and how well matched they are, although I've got to say this comes with an enormous health warning, in as much as the away side have been absolute rubbish this season. But I think in terms of the players, when I have a rating system and it's done very well in terms of the draws, matching draws. I think when you're looking at a 7-2 bet, that's a nice outsider for a draw for me, and that's Hoffenheim against Mainz. Mainz are rubbish, and they are bound to ruin this. But at that price, and you're going to give me the money back, I'm going to take that. Hoffenheim Mainz at 7-2, 4.5 on the exchange, and Mainz are going to ruin it. But I'll get my money back. So thanks, Ali.
No worries at all, Mark. You've been doing pretty nicely on this. One winner for sure, and then I think you've come very close twice. So would you another very nicely priced winner?
Yeah, I'm going to have a swing this weekend in Spain. I don't expect many people to sort of buy into this, but there is logic behind the selection, and it's Leganés to beat Barcelona at home. They're around 7-1. They might be bottom of La Liga, but they're very unlucky to be there. Expected points puts them in mid-table in Spain, only 6 points behind Barcelona, actually. They've been very fortunate to be leading the table at this stage. At home, they've been as imperious as ever, really, but their away record, very, very questionable. 3 defeats in 6 already. Athletic Bilbao on the opening day, where they were terrible. Granada, and then Levante most recently, where again they were terrible. Very lucky not to lose in Prague and Dortmund in the Champions League. Lost here against Leganés last season. They were quite fortunate to get a draw against Osasuna away from home this season. The 2-0 win at Getafe was pretty unconvincing too. Now Leganés have brought in Javier Aguirre to try and turn them around. They were unbeaten at home against the top 6 last season. They're a team that really plays on small margins, and I think they're the kind of team who can really get in amongst Barcelona, and a team that Barcelona have struggled with. Surprisingly as well, Barca have got just a 55% win ratio away at bottom half teams in La Liga under Valverde, which is really nothing to write home about when you consider how comfortably they've won the league in the last 2 seasons. They're vulnerable, as we know, away from home. They're vulnerable, I think, because it's so soon after an international break, and I think they're also vulnerable in defensive positions this season, and also the fact that Semedo, Jordi Alba and Sergio Roberto are all missing. So they've got no right backs available by youth team players, and they're going to have to play someone out of position at left back as well. I think they're very beatable. 7-1 is a bit stingy, but I think it's a reflection on where Barcelona are at the moment, and also the fact that Leganés aren't as bad as the league table suggests.
You're having a swing in Spain this weekend. I'm actually going to Spain next week to play golf, so I'll be having a swing in Spain in a slightly different way. I like Leganés a lot. Thank you for that, Mark. Let's see how those get on. It's time for any other business. So
yeah, I've got some more business. And it's an acca. It's an acca. I want to throw together because I'm looking for draws. I want to throw together the Bournemouth Wolves into an acca with Watford Burnley, Aston Villa against Newcastle, and Eintracht Frankfurt against Wolfsburg as a four-way acca. All of them draws, and that should return better than 12-1. Only it won't, because something's going to let us down. But if it doesn't, that's juicy.
Good stuff. Mark, any other business?
Yeah, for sure. Italy, Sunday, Sassuolo play Lazio. Let's get with the goals here. Over 2.75 goals, around 1.75. I make it much shorter than that. Sassuolo under Roberto De Zerbi, one of the most entertaining teams in Italy, beat Bologna 3-1 in the derby before the international break, despite missing a catalogue of defensive players. That's 9 winning selections in 11 matches this season. Lazio 9 from 12 for over 2.5 goals. They've won their last 4, unbeaten in the league since mid-September, scored at least twice in each of the last 7. Alongside Atalanta, they're providing the biggest attacking threat in Italy this season in terms of XG from open play, all the data metrics really. And Sassuolo have just been a goal haven whenever they play at home really, under De Zerbi since the start of last season. You're looking at over 3.5 goals landing in more than 50% of their games, scoring in all those games as well. And their games against the top 6 this season have ended in 3-4 defeats to Inter, 1-4 against Atalanta, and 2-4 against Roma. If you consider Lazio have scored at least 3 goals 5 times already in Serie A, I can't see anything else but a bit of a goal frenzy there.
And now for...
Ali, sorry, can I interrupt? Sorry, just forgive me, I keep interrupting you. I just said it was 12-1, that acca. It's 80.
Yeah, I thought it might be, with probably that one extra one that you added. Okay, nice. An 80-1 acca, not bad at all. Matt, in terms of your best bet of the weekend, I feel like you gave us a teaser earlier. I'm going to start calling you the wardrobe because you're full of draws.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, the cupboard, yeah. Yeah, it is. It has to be that Bournemouth Wolves game. I think if you're getting 7-2 on that or something approaching it, then a skinny draw offering would be 2s, 3.1 on the exchange. And they can go up to like Hoffenheim, Mainz. There, you can get 7-2. So this falls somewhere in between, closer to the skinnier end. But I think that when you look at all of the underlying data, as Mark refers to it, I think that it is a giveaway actually at that kind of money. I think you've got a really strong chance of it coming in.
And Mark, your best bet of the weekend?
Yeah, just mentioned it in Italy, over 2.75 goals in Sassuolo against Lazio. This bet has made money in 18 of the 2 teams combined, 23 games this season. 11 of those 23 featuring 4 or more goals, and 15 of them seeing both teams score. The collective average is 3.62 goals per game. So I think if you can get 2.75 goals or anything bigger than 1.7, you're in a decent position.
That's it from us. Thank you to Matt and Mark for your expertise. Plenty that we've got through from the Premier League and plenty elsewhere as well. Wishing you all a happy and healthy and profitable weekend, and we'll talk again next week.